Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Kaki Lee, and my mission is to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I am excited to share the love and wisdom of specialist dementia coach and nurse and founder of Dementia Debbie Callow, who's joining me all the way from England. Welcome, Debbie.
Hi, Kaki. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Before we dive into your journey, I always like to ask my guests, what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
Probably to me, it's somebody who has kind of gone through some difficulties, grown, had some self-awareness, and coming out the other side of all of that, feeling strong in who they are and sort of putting that out to the world without any apologies and shining brightly and attracting more people, more women to want to be like that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So, Debbie, let's dive into your journey. I know you've had multiple careers before training to become a nurse and specializing in dementia. I know you've been in retail, hospitality, finance, HR, just to name a few. Can you share with us that journey on, going from having multiple careers to then deciding that you were going to go down the nursing path and really also specializing in dementia, which is, a very specific area. Did you have any spiritual awakenings or aha moments that led you down that path? Can you share that with us?
I think I did have an aha moment when I just moved back from living in Ireland for a year in my early 20s, and I was in a good, well-paid marketing and events role, which is kind of the sort of work I'd been doing the last few years before that point. And I remember it was working with a lighting company, and I had to do all their marketing and events for their lighting products.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in a meeting about lights thinking, I do not care about lights. And thinking, I don't want to spend my days like this. This isn't what I'm passionate about. This, and money has never been the driver for me either. So the fact that I was making good money didn't really make a difference to me. So I really started to evaluate, the amount of time you spend at work. You really should be doing something you like to do. And I started drilling down, what is that for me? So I started to weigh up between nursing and teaching, because I wanted to do something where I was giving back in some way and actually feel a sense of accomplishment with my day. And in the end, I decided on nursing. My mum was a nurse, so perhaps that's what led me that direction maybe. Yeah. And then I decided on mental health nursing as well, which is where the dementia started coming in, because over here, the dementia care comes under the mental health umbrella, even though really it's more of an organic illness. It still comes under that umbrella. So as a student nurse, when I started learning about dementia, I was just fascinated by it. And I knew before I qualified that that's where I want to be working.
Wow. I know you said you became very fascinated. Was it, a particular moment where you went, that is what I want to do? Like, what was it that really drew you into wanting to specialize in dementia?
I think when I just started working with patients and family with what they were going through and how completely life-altering it is for not just the person, but the ripple effect dementia has, and how it casts its net much wider than just that individual. And and at the time as well, I felt like there wasn't great support. So if somebody has cancer, for example, there is loads of doors get open to access loads of different types of support, whereas that doesn't really happen with dementia, and it's quite an imbalance there in what people can receive. So that was another reason too. I just kind of felt called to, this is the area I can be of the most benefit, I suppose.
I love that, throughout your this journey from, your multiple careers to nursing and to dementia care, it really is all about giving back and serving and how you can make things better. So I just love that about you. That's really beautiful. So Debbie, just for our audience, I'm sure most people have heard of dementia and they have an idea of what it is. But do you mind just unpacking a little bit about really talking about what it actually is, the signs and symptoms that, someone with dementia has, and what are the impacts on the family and the person? What does it look like, just so that the audience has a better idea and, increase their awareness?
Yeah, okay. So the dementia is an umbrella term. In the same way that cancer is an umbrella term, and then underneath it, you would have all the different types. So depending what type somebody has might depend on treatment options, prognosis, and things like that. So the most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's. Most people have heard of that. And in fact, one of the most common things I get asked by caregivers is, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? And really, it's that there isn't one. Dementia's your umbrella term, and then Alzheimer's is underneath that umbrella. It's just the most common umbrella bit underneath, which is why we hear about it the most, and it leads people to think it's something different. Yeah. People could be any type, or it could be a mixed type that they're diagnosed with, more than one. That's getting more common as well. And some types are still quite rare, which can often lead to misdiagnosis or difficulty just getting a diagnosis. So the other misconception is that, dementia is just the thing about memory. But it's so much more than that. Because it's a disease of the brain, it ultimately can affect anything, because our brain is in charge of everything else for us. Yeah. So if the brain's starting to go faulty, somebody might have the memory troubles with it, but for someone else, they might have, say, some speech problems first, or they might have some personality changes before they progress to getting memory difficulties. So the memory stuff does happen. It just can happen later on in some types of dementia. And I think that's one thing that can impact the families quite greatly, is they can go through years sometimes of this uncertainty, feeling like something's wrong, but not being able to get to the bottom of it. Even if they've got medics involved, sometimes they don't even pick up on, this could be a type of dementia. Particularly if somebody's a bit younger. It's a bit more common for it to be misdiagnosed when people are younger as well.
Yeah. What's the most common age for the onset of dementia?
I don't know if there's a consistent age. It's more common when people are over 65, and the older and older you get, the more likelihood of developing dementia there is. So how old you are becomes a risk factor to developing it. But the thing with dementia, somebody could have all the risk factors and still not get it, and somebody could have none of them and still get it. Yeah. So that again is another thing that's quite tricky for people to sort of get used to. Yeah.
So it's it basically, you can, or it doesn't really matter whether you've got a family history of it or not. You may not get it, but you might not. It's really kind of the luck of the draw, kind of. Is it a bit like that?
Dementia's not fussy about who it picks. And people often, when they do get diagnosed, feel like their intelligence is being questioned, and they can be quite defensive about those kind of aspects. But it's nothing to do with intelligence levels. So, somebody who's very highly intelligent could still get it, and somebody who's had little to no education could still get it. So, but people just, feel quite personal about it when they're diagnosed. And I think the main thing, probably the same with other major diagnoses, people just don't want to be seen as different, and they don't want to be treated different either by, loved ones and those around them. So, that's if they understand what's happening to them too, because that's the other thing with dementia. Some people don't have that insight into realizing something's wrong. It's more family that are noticing.
Yeah. Well, I used to work in I'm a pharmacist that used to work in a pediatric hospital, so I'm learning something new, and it's just really fascinating because obviously I never came across dementia when I was in a pediatric hospital. So I want to ask you, what's the youngest age that you've come across of someone getting dementia?
Personally, from my experience, people in their very early 40s, but there have been people in their 20s diagnosed with dementia. Wow. And also another thing, when you're diagnosed a lot younger, it's likely to progress quicker because your body is progressing quicker. It would be the same, if you got any kind of major illness. If you're younger, it tends to progress a bit quicker. So somebody in their 90s who develops dementia, it could go quite slowly, and it would be the same if they developed a cancer at that age. It might develop itself quite slowly, whereas if that same person got those diagnoses in their 50s, both would probably move along a bit quicker.
Wow. And just want to ask you, are there any ways to prevent dementia or slow the progress of dementia?
There are things that can help. I mean, you'll read lots of stuff in the press about, this helps dementia, this prevents dementia, this cures dementia. Definitely take those things with a pinch of salt, because there's always a new one popping up, and if you actually look into it, the evidence is often quite weak. There's not much proof that what they're saying is true. But if it's something that's not going to cause any harm to you, then, give it a go. And if it helps for you, then that's great. Sometimes I get people inquiring about, I've read this is good for dementia and will slow things. What do you think? And so you have to be careful with what you read and think about where you read it, who paid for that study to be done, and this kind of stuff as well. But in general, what's good for the heart is good for the head. So if you're doing all the things we're supposed to do, sleep enough, make sure you keep hydrated, some exercise, eating healthy, not smoking or drinking alcohol, all these kind of things will put together to mean you're keeping yourself healthier and should keep your brain a bit healthier. But as I said before, there's no guarantees. So sometimes someone who's done all those things might just still get it. And that's why more needs to be done in terms of research.
Yeah. Have you found that since you've gone into the specialty that there's more research and more support available for, people with dementia?
There's definitely been a growth, So over the 10 years that I've sort of been nursing, I've seen quite big changes. But just to give some context to that, they reckon dementia care is still about 20 years behind where cancer research is up to. So there's still a long way to go. So in another 20 years, we could be seeing people getting cured of certain types and things like that, perhaps. And there's major research projects going on all over the world, into certain things. Obviously, everybody's going to want to be the first person to find the cure for Alzheimer's and things like that. So there is tons of research going on. So, and usually, if somebody gets diagnosed, try and find out what research projects are going on available near to where you are that you might be able to get involved with if you want to.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I've learned so much today with our chat. So, Debbie, let's get back to you. I'd really love to, get you to share more of your love and wisdom with us. I want to find out, get a bit more personal with you and find out if there was a particular experience in your life where, you found the most challenging but really led to your biggest breakthrough?
On a personal level, I mean, switching to nursing was quite a big one for me. Everybody at the time thought I was a bit crazy because, leaving a well-paid job to become a poor student again with no job was a big leap, but it felt right. So I've never been afraid of jumping into stuff if it feels more aligned to me, and if I felt out of alignment with life, I've sort of reflected on what can I change, what needs to change here. But on a personal development sort of point of view, probably when I got divorced, or when I separated from my ex-husband, I found a place to live, bought a house, and realized after I moved in, oh, I've never lived alone before. I'd always lived with family or friends or partners, never by myself. And I grew up in quite a noisy household as well, so I don't like silence very much.
Yeah.
So when I first started living by myself, it was very strange how quiet everything was. And I'd say it took a couple of years to start getting used to and liking being on my own and doing my own thing, and not needing to talk or answer with anybody else about what I wanted to do. Even what you want to have to eat. I don't need to consult with anyone.
Yeah.
I can have what I want, and it took me quite a while to get used to those sort of things, really.
Yeah.
But I think only at that point, when I became sort of happy with just being me, was I actually properly ready to let someone else back into my life again. And that was a big turning point, I think, because it meant that I wasn't repeating past patterns and behaviors that had led me into toxic relationships in the past. I'd worked on all those things. I wasn't behaving in a codependent way anymore, and that kind of thing. So that was a massive personal turning point for me, I think, just getting used to be happy just being me.
Yeah, I love that, because there's so many of us, especially women, we don't know ourselves, and we don't love ourselves, and we're not happy with where we are or who we are. So it's just beautiful that, even though it was uncomfortable at the beginning, that you actually, you just developed that time, use that time to develop yourself, rather than going, oh, I'm really uncomfortable, I need someone to live with me, right? Because you could have done that. So that was really good that you took that time. I want to ask you a question, because this just popped up. You said you've always been someone that wasn't afraid to jump into things that aligned with you if it feels good. Was this something that you've always had, like this self-awareness, or was it something that you kind of developed along the way? Because you just seem to be very sure, oh, if it aligns with me, I'm happy. Because most people, people get stuck in their jobs and they don't want to move, right? But you seem to be quite happy to go, okay, that doesn't align, I'm going to do this.
It's feel the fear and do it anyway. I've always been quite comfortable with that in terms of career and jobs. I've had no problem with completely switching to something else until I found what I really felt comfortable with, which is where I'm at now. So, it's took a long time. But on a personal level, I think it took me even longer to realize. I mean, my younger self, I probably knew that I wasn't in a good place with a certain relationship and things, but I'd try and ignore that because I loved the person. So I wanted to stay in that relationship, even though really I knew it wasn't the best thing to do. So feeling the fear and jumping out of a relationship, I perhaps was a bit slower with. And I think in the couple of years I was by myself after leaving my husband, that's when I did the most work on that part of it. And I started to notice I was doing a lot of webinar things and reading a lot of books and proper trying to dig in deep about where were my patterns and where were my triggers and my responsibility and what had gone wrong with previous partners and things as well. And I reached a point where I just started to love myself and thought, I'm not going to tolerate this kind of disrespect from somebody now, somebody who perhaps isn't there for you when they need to be, or doesn't return your texts, or this kind of stuff that when you're a lot younger you kind of put up with it. And I just got to a point of thinking, no, I'm not going to settle for that anymore. I'm going to wait till I find the person who gives me all the things that I want. And I do remember, actually, this is probably another aha moment. I'd stopped seeing a guy who lived down in London. I'm up in North England. And we never really became a couple during the time we were seeing each other. I wanted to, and I really kind of fell for him. But he was treating me quite badly. But because I'd kind of fallen for him, I was ignoring all of that. And then it reached a point where I was just like, no, enough's enough. I need to let this person go. And I spoke to the universe and said, like, all I want is, a guy with integrity, that treats me with respect, and listed these kind of qualities. And within a few weeks of releasing the past guy and making that little prayer to the universe, I met my current partner, and we now live together and pregnant with my first child.
Oh, so congratulations. That's awesome. And I just love that, when we surrender and just put our trust in the universe, that, the universe answers, right? And
I had to make the space for it, though, because what I realized looking back later was, whilst I was still in contact and sort of seeing this guy that was messing me, there was no space for someone new. There was no space for the right person to come into my life, because mentally, at least, I was preoccupied with the wrong person. And the same happens with jobs, I suppose. Whilst you're still in your job that's paying you well, etc., there's no space for the right thing to come along.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, Debbie, I want to ask you, because I know you said you did a lot of inner work during the couple of years that you started living on your own, and you talked about some of the tools already. But was there, I don't know if you're an avid reader, but were there any particular books that really helped you on your growth and, healing journey?
Definitely one that I do still reread now when I feel like I need that direction again, was Lucky Bitch by Denise Duffield-Thomas. Have you read that one?
I haven't read it. I've read her Chillpreneur. I haven't read Lucky Bitch.
It was so good. It just has lots of guidance on how to start trying to make these changes. And, it's little tips like change your passwords to things that relate to what you're trying to achieve, so that you've got those constant reminders, and like your phone background to the same thing. So you've constantly got the reminder of where you're trying to get to with things. And for me, they all really worked. Another thing she says to do is to put it in your calendar for in the future, for like when that thing will be achieved. And I've done that a few times now, and the things I've done it for have been really close to the date, the fake date that I put in the calendar. So, I think it's just about the positivity mind aspect of it more than anything.
Yeah. I think your mindset and the energy behind it, your intention behind it, really does make a difference with you achieving or not achieving something, right? Because if you go, I want to achieve that, but then at the back of your mind, you're already like, oh, I don't think I can do it, then you're not going to be able to do it, right?
Yeah, you have to commit to it. And with some of the things I've done it with, one of them was for a previous nursing job that I got. And I actually quit like the job I had at the time before I'd even got the new job. I had an interview, but I didn't have it yet. But again, people thought I was being a bit nuts. But I said, no, I need to show the universe that I am clearing I had a backup plan just to cover that. I did have a backup in case I didn't get it. But I needed to make sure the universe knew that that's how much I was ready to receive this thing I was trying to achieve. I'd made the space. And it did all work out. And I think people that don't do any of this do struggle to understand these kind of leaps and bounds you make to try and achieve stuff. But it works. Well, I'm already thinking up now, right, what's my next one going to be? Because I can only manifest one thing at once.
Yeah, but it's awesome that, you just put it out there, and so what if people think you're nuts? It works.
Yeah, you get to say further down the line, see?
It worked. Even if you think I'm nuts, it worked. Yeah. I want to ask you, Debbie, having gone through everything that you've been through, what do you believe is the greatest lesson that you've learned in your life so far?
Oh, if I'd have known when I was a lot younger that if I just loved me, everything else would be okay. I really wish I'd known that when I was little, or that they teach these sort of things in school or something, because I think as soon as you kind of hit that age where you're a bit more mindful of judgment by your peers and that kind of stuff, you can start to become quite self-doubting and a bit sort of reclusive, and your self-esteem can take a knock. And I think we see that too in celebrities and things, that you see these successful, beautiful people that will admit that they're actually depressed or unhappy, or and it's all goes back to, do you actually love you? So yeah, I do feel like that now, but it's took till my mid-30s to be able to say that. So if I could change anything, it'd be to feel the way I do now when I was a lot younger. And who knows what could have happened.
Yeah, I love that. And I absolutely agree that our school system doesn't give us the tools for success in life. It's like you learn all the skills, like your maths, your science, your grammar, but in terms of getting back up after you fail, or how to having emotional intelligence, all those things aren't taught at school. They tend to be things after you like yourself, you experience all these things, and then you go, oh, I need to do some inner work and dig deeper to see what's happening here, right? And some people don't do that even when they fail or get down in the dumps, because they don't know that they have to do that, so they just keep
and everybody I suppose has to hit their own aha moment. And for some people that might not happen, but it's about being connected with your intuition and things, isn't it? Because sometimes those signs are there and you choose to ignore them. So perhaps just listening to that a bit more often and trying to work out what the message is, what it's trying to tell you. I also quite like dream interpretation as a way of sort of self reflection and awareness. So I'm a big believer in, my dreams are a message from my subconscious.
I like, I don't really remember my dreams very much, I think, because I'm so tired with 2 kids, I just completely knock out. But the times that I do remember like strange dreams, I'm always like Googling, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? Definitely agree.
It helps to find out when you have a strange one. It definitely helps to find out what that actually meant.
And most times I'm like, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense when I apply it to what's currently happening in my life. So love that. Awesome. So Debbie, I want to ask you, there's a lot of women and men probably listening right now who are stuck in their life, don't know how to make changes, or they're too scared to make the changes in their career or their relationships or their health, or anything really, and they need some guidance. What kind of recommendations or tips or advice can you give them to really just help them to just take that first step?
Probably the thing that made the biggest difference to me to start on sort of developing myself in this way was trying to remove toxicity from my life. So people in particular, if you've got, you know, key people around you that are, you know, quite negative, you know, more like a drain than a radiator. I have this thing about, you know, get rid of your drains and keep your radiators. So your drains are your people that suck away your energy source, and your radiators are the ones that boost it up.
Yeah.
So you need less drains and more radiators, and it's not easy. You know, I've had like major people in my life that was happening with. One was my ex-husband, and you know, we ended up getting divorced because that was what was the best thing to do. So it's not always easy, because that person can be very embedded into your current life, and that can give you the fear to not want to make those changes. But once those negative people are away and you've got more of the radiators around you, you'll start to just move and shift and start flying along. So probably just reflecting on where are those toxic parts of your life. It could be work, it could be home, it could be certain friends that, you know, perhaps that's now run its course, you know, but it's going to be different for everyone. So just doing a bit of journaling initially to try and think some of these things through, perhaps to look at where you might want to make some changes.
Yeah, thank you. That's great advice. So, Debbie, I want to ask you, I want to take a bit of a turn, because I'm all about self-love as well, because that was my biggest lesson on my journey. So as an awakened feminine, what does self-love mean to you?
Self-love to me is just being unapologetically yourself and going after your, you know, your hopes, your dreams, your goals, and not apologizing for what you do. The right people will flock to you, and having those right people around you is quite important. So in terms of things I do for self-love, you know, because I still get down days, everybody does, usually in sync with the full moon is when I start getting a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
But just looking after you, and it's not about what you look like to others, you're doing it for you. So, you know, people that get quite into exercise, some of them might be doing it for what other people think, but some are doing it because it makes them feel good to be healthy, same as what you put into your body, you know. And when you're doing all these things, it sort of is a reflection of the fact you do love yourself. And when we don't do them is when we're going to start feeling bad again. I see this with caregivers at times, because they get so focused on the person they're caring for, their self-love goes out the window. Time on themselves, they feel like there is no time for themselves. So all those little things that help them realize and identify with who they really are can start to dissipate. So for any carers listening in particular, making those bits of time for just you and protecting that time and having it quite boundaried to others is really important. It's not selfish, and it's not something to feel guilty about. It's a necessity to keep yourself going. So yeah, self-love is a big umbrella, really.
It is. Yeah, it is, definitely. And thank you for the reminder, because definitely as caregivers, I mean, that includes parents, not just, you know, people looking after, you know, people that are sick. You know, you really get drained because you're just giving, and you forget about yourself. So it's just, as you say, so important to dedicate some time, because if you're drained and you can't even function, then you're not going to be of help to the person that you're looking after, right? So it's so important to look after yourself so that you can look after someone else as well as yourself.
Yeah, I always describe it as, you know, on a flight, if there's an issue, you have to put your own mask on first.
Yeah.
That's what it's like if you're any type of caregiver. Remember to put your own mask on first, or otherwise you could, at some point, you're going to be no use to those around you. That is where you want to be. That's where you want to be, helping and giving your love. But you've got to save a bit for yourself first.
Yeah, exactly. I want to ask you, Debbie, what are your top 3 go-to activities to give yourself the self-love that you deserve?
I love to pamper my feet. It's quite a basic one, but just spending time soaking my feet, giving them a good scrub, and then paint my nails and all this kind of stuff. And they feel like brand new feet afterwards. And but I suppose if you think about things like reflexology, like every bit of your foot is connected to the rest of you.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy doing things like that. Just social time's quite an important one for me. I'm a people person. I'm a connector. I like to be out there speaking with people. So all this lockdown stuff that the whole world's had to go through lately, that's been really hard. No more hugging, not able to visit friends or family. It's not been good.
Yeah.
I love doing those kind of things. So I'm quite excited of life getting a bit more back to normal and those things coming back into play again.
Yeah.
My free time that's how I prefer to spend it, is with others, doing just fun things. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And before we wrap up, Debbie, I'd love to know, what is your personal mission and what is setting your soul on fire right now?
So yeah, my personal mission is helping the world understand dementia at the moment. So I do a lot of that through my Instagram account. And then also I've got 2 active nursing roles over here too. So that's where I'm a bit more hands-on, I suppose, locally and things. Probably education really is what sets my soul on fire, which is really strange because the younger me hated doing any kind of public speaking. Would have gone bright red if asked to speak out in class and things like that. And I've just gone the polar opposite now. I love it because I'm passionate about educating about dementia. So I'm kind of in my zone when I'm doing a course or a webinar or anything like that. I just love it. And I like helping people have some light bulb aha moments themselves in relation to the dementia. Because if people can just sort of put themselves in that person's shoes a bit, like that, I think really helps. And that's how I try to educate and teach on the topic, is to help people see it from that perspective.
Yeah, I love everything that you're doing around dementia, and the fact, before when I was asking you, you just have so much knowledge. You can just rattle off all the information and so I know that you're so passionate about it, and just seeing that, you always kind of bring it back to, caregiving and, how it all relates. It's really wonderful to have someone that is so passionate to be an advocate for people, suffering from dementia and also their families. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. And thanks for having me for doing this. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom. If people want to find out more about you and how they can work with you, or how, you can help them with knowing more about dementia, where should they find you?
They can go to the website. That's thedementiacoach.org. Or come and find me on Instagram, which is @DementiaDebbie.
Beautiful. I'll have all your details and any recommended resources available in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you once again for being on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.